Brenden, I said it earlier to start the show. With Cooper Flagg going number 1 overall to the Dallas Mavericks, they got a loaded front court. Lively, Gafford, P.J. Washington, Anthony Davis. I mean, even Caleb Martin as a backup small forward. They're pretty loaded front court.
Yeah.
And I look at the backcourt and I see, okay, Spencer Dinwiddie. I see Max Christie. I see Klay Thompson. But Kyrie Irving dealing with the ACL injury. Why not make Cooper Flagg point forward? Let him run the show to start the season. Why not?
I think you wouldn't want to put too much on his plate too early.
Oh, that's
right?
fair.
I think this is simply not a skill set issue as much as, hey, he's a rookie. Let him settle into what his role will actually be when Kyrie does come back. I'm not sure that they're done with making adjustments to that backcourt either. I don't know who. I know that they sniff around D'Angelo Russell. I know that's a report out that just came out either last night or this morning. I'd wonder if they'd be interested in a Chris Paul in a 1-year rental sort of situation. Like they're much like Boston. They're kind of in a wait and see sort of a mode because Kyrie obviously being injured completely changes the trajectory of what they thought this team would look like even post Luka trade. But I think if I'm Dallas, I don't put too much on his plate. It's going to be difficult enough. You mentioned how loaded they are in that front court, and that's part of the reason I think that they might continue to make moves with at the guard position because there's just a lot of guys that play a very similar style, not a ton of shooting. You know, Anthony Davis outside that one bubble year isn't that kind of shooter. Neither is Lively. And so they're going to have to figure out, there are a lot of really good pieces there. And I have a hard time believing that all of those guys are going to be walking in day one and still on that roster when they still have so much more to do in the backcourt, even if they want to just be somewhat competitive.
What is initially, and maybe in the long term, what is Cooper Flagg's ideal role?
You know, I got made fun of a lot for when I made this comp earlier.
Okay.
It reminds me a lot of Ben Simmons, like the early Ben Simmons, before Ben Simmons had that kind of like just mental short circuit. Remember,
like
Ben
before
Simmons was
passing up on layups, Ben Simmons.
Yes, right. Before that guy, but remember, he was an all-star. He's all defensive team. He's a rookie. He was a really good early player. I think he made like 3 all-star games until, kind of whatever happened with him. But I think that can be what Cooper Flagg is. You mentioned point forward. That was what Ben Simmons did a lot of for the Philadelphia 76ers. And I think that he will be an important cog in terms of the ball movement. They don't have a ton of passers. I mentioned some of the redundant skill sets in that front court. Mm-hmm. Without Kyrie, they really don't have a ton of passing. You mentioned Klay. That's not really his forte. Max Christie's still pretty young, and he's really not a facilitator like that. Flagg might walk in first day and be one of their better facilitators. I think that would be a really, really important part of his early career, as long as they don't put too much on him. He shouldn't be your primary guy. I wouldn't want him bringing up the ball a ton and having to run sets. Not that he can't, but I wouldn't want to put too much on him too early. But he is going to be a vital cog, kind of the way that maybe Jokic is or Sabonis is for Sacramento, where you're having him at the elbow and things just kind of work around him kind of in a heliocentric sort of a vibe, because he can make those passes. He can make those decisions. And if you have guys that are good enough off ball to cut and move and shooters, you can be a problem offensively for any team.
Brenden Whitted, HU Cosell, give him a follow on X. He's our basketball brain here on the Adam Gold Show. Speaking of Flagg and that situation going to Dallas, no Kyrie Irving to start the year recovering from the ACL, but there's a lot of talent on that team. Not a lot of first overall picks go to pretty talented teams that could compete right away. This is not a situation where, all right, you got to come in and be the guy and your team stinks for the next 4 years because we don't know how to put guys around you. This is a situation where he's dropped into a team that can compete right away. I mean, again, that's a perfect situation for a guy like him. He might be able to flourish in this type of situation as opposed to just putting up good counting stats on a bad team.
Yeah, like that's 1.8%, man. That was their those were their odds to
all you needed.
Get the number 1 pick. Certainly not the Hornets, who were organically trashed, right? Like they didn't have to tank. They were God-given bad last year.
They were.
Like I wanted a top 3 pick would have been great. Even Dylan Harper, right? The guy was going to go number 2. I thought that would have been a really nice guy to pair alongside LaMelo Ball or take over for LaMelo Ball when he inevitably gets hurt. Not that I'm wishing that happens, but it is something that happens.
It happens.
It happens frequently enough that you kind of have to plan for it now. And not a ton in that backcourt in terms of depth for guys that you really want to create. Nick Smith Jr., Seth Curry. I mean, it drops off pretty severely after Ball. And so Harper would have been great. If they're picking 4, Knipple is the guy that I want, and I think this.
Yes,
yeah, I think this has as much to do with wanting just some stability. I think he's one of the guys with the higher floors in this draft, not named Flagg or Harper, where hey, he's good off the catch and shoot. He's a good movement shooter. He can create a little bit and play make. You saw when Flagg went out, you saw him do a little bit of that, something that the Hornets desperately need because that goes lacking whenever LaMelo, even if he's just sitting when he goes to the bench, that can suffer. And I think if you're a Hornets fan and you looked at the finals and you looked at OKC specifically, we're looking at another small market team. We're also looking at a team that was in the finals in 2012, right? Remember the KD, Russ, Harden team that lost to LeBron and the Heat. And they went from that, got bad, added draft capital, got good again, and now have won a title. And the Hornets have stayed bad that entire time.
That's true.
And there just has to be a higher ceiling. Like I think there is a general fan fatigue with this Hornet squad because you're talking about North Carolina and you're talking about basketball. The fans are there, right?
Oh, yeah.
But the fans aren't going to be there for in perpetuity, right? Like for anybody, there is a breaking point. And you're talking about the team with 24th in terms of defensive points per possession allowed, 29th in terms of points per possession scored on offense, 28th in third. I mean, like just almost every bad offensive metric they had. So they have to get better somewhere. And Knipple seems like to me almost a layup. Like we know he'll be able to play and he'll be good for a while. And it doesn't have to be, hey, Mark Williams is hurt again, Brandon Miller is hurt again, LaMelo's hurt again. Like some sort of stability, which is a lot to ask for any rookie, but that's what you're hoping for if you're a Hornets fan.
All those rankings you were throwing out, I thought you were talking about the Carolina Panthers defense, speaking of Charlotte. But speaking of, they're catching strays right now. But speaking of Con Knipple, and this is something I mentioned at the start of the show, and the reason why I like him for Charlotte is that he doesn't have to have the ball in his hands. Like Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball, those guys can have the primary ball handlers, and Knipple can make it work. But he does something that so many young players, I think, struggle with. And I think this is something we're seeing across basketball as a sport, is that we see so many young players, someone's bringing the ball up in the court, and they're just kind of standing in the corner ready to catch and shoot. And they're not moving. Like, Knipple will come off a screen, doesn't get the ball, he'll continue to cut, or he'll just turn back and screen the guy that screened for him. Like, he does those kinds of things, and just his basketball IQ is so high. Like you mentioned, I said the exact same thing. His floor is really high, and I think he could be a good core piece for a team. It's not a sexy pick, but this team needs to raise its floor, and I think Knipple can do that.
I think so too, and I think it's stability, right? That's what you want. You want somebody that you feel confident is going to be able to play 70 games throughout the season. Hopefully Brandon Miller comes back. The Brandon Miller, there hasn't been a ton of transparency with where he is in his recovery of his wrist injury.
Yeah.
The Hornets have gotten into some of this stuff previously where they are just very, very tight with the information given. But from the X interviews that he gave, he still wasn't doing 5-on-5 on-court stuff. Remember, he was an all rookie. He was on an all rookie team. His rookie year, like he's a good player, but as so happens so often with Hornets players, haven't seen enough of him. As it pertains to Mark Williams, trying to trade him and then being unsuccessful in doing so, and then him coming back is kind of awkward.
It is a little awkward.
And there was a couple games there where it seemed like he was healthy enough to play, but there seemed to be a little bit of friction from maybe some tea leaves that were kind of out there. I'm just hoping that whatever issues previously that they've had, that they're able to work through those, because that would be giving up on a number 15 pick really early in his career who has shown flashes and shown prominence, even if there are some injury concerns, particularly with his back.
Brenden Whitted at HU Cosell. Give him a follow. Last question for you, 60 seconds here, Brenden Whitted. Brooklyn Nets have 4 first-round picks?
Yeah.
Are they gonna make some moves? Like, you should be able to build a future with 4 first-round picks, right?
I would think you wouldn't necessarily want 4 first-round picks all at the same time, though.
That's true.
Because it's so hard to develop guys all at the same time. The stuff that OKC was able to do with the development of all these young players simultaneously has been really, really impressive. Now, they still needed Hartenstein is a little bit older. They still needed Caruso, who had won a title before. But they've been able to bring along SGA and J-Dub and Chet all kind of simultaneously at the same time. That's something I feel like that's more of an outlier than it is something that everybody else can do. I would not be surprised if the Nets traded out of the first and just and push some of these decisions to be made at a different time, or maybe combine some and try to move up in case they really, really like somebody. But I have a hard time believing that they're going to make every single one of those selections tonight.
Maybe Drake Powell, North Carolina guy, might be going to the Brooklyn.
He's been really low on all the mocks that I've seen, and I feel like he might be one. Not to be too much of a homer here, but like he might be one of those guys we kind of look back on and like, why didn't he go earlier with the skill set that he's going to be able to walk in first day with?
Yeah, and he can help a team right away. He can help a team right away for sure. Brenden Whitted, thanks so much for your time. Again, at HU Cosell. Enjoy the draft tonight, my man. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man.